So second to last on our marathon of the Fast Saga is Hobbs and Shaw. Before we get into F9, we really figure out what happens to the two other characters that won't be in F9, though will hopefully be in F10 and 11, which will, I think, are again like a two-parter, so they'll probably be filmed together, but whatever, not the point. We'll be seeing what these characters do in the meantime, and maybe a little bit expanding on what else happens in the world outside our Fast Saga group. With that, we get Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw. If that means we'll have more presents in the future, well, cool, then this name will make sense. Until then, I'm just going to call it Hobbs and Shaw, because I'm pretty sure it's going to be an X-Men Origins type situation of we'll never get another movie that has that sort of subtitle. Or main title? I don't really care. Then again, when you think about it, Presents may be where the series will go after 11, all things considered. They probably won't stop making these movies for a long time. Name recognition is very much a thing in Hollywood and is a big problem. I go over franchises a lot, but that's the reason why these franchises exist, is that names are very easy to make rather than actual stories. Something in the same world, you can basically put whatever to screen and people will probably go and see it unless they become incredibly disenfranchised with the franchise, which Fast and Furious has not quite had that moment yet. Set a year after the events of Fate of the Furious, our two boys, Hobbs and Shaw, are kind of off living their normal lives. Even though he said it, and I know he said it because I paid specific attention to it at the end of Fate of the Furious, Hobbs, who again said he retired, just didn't retire. He did not retire. He's still working with the DSS, and he is contacted by the CIA, which their representatives is, for whatever reason, Ryan Reynolds. Right at the same time where the CIA, through connections of Mr. Nobody, so there's their quick reference, meets up with Deckard Statham, and of course now the two of them are sent on basically the exact same mission. Which is, of course, to find Deckard's own sister, who's been framed by a certain strange hacker cult, who one of their members is played by the fantastic Idris Elba, who is great in everything I've ever really seen him in, and more or less this too. He plays Brixton Lore, meanwhile Vanessa Kirby plays Hattie Shaw. The two of them quickly catch up to Hattie, and through that is she brought to the CIA building, which is quickly broken into by Brixton and his group of just kind of, helmeted men. And there is a very quick fight scene where we find out that Brixton, due to cybernetic enhancements, can basically, predict what they're gonna do. Basically, it's those fucking glasses from the end of the very stupid Dead or Alive movie. Though they do get away by driving as fast as they can and doing that cool driving under a truck thing, which, by the way, would not work in any capacity in real life, but they'll continue to do that in these movies, because of course they will. Brixton's weird transforming fucking motorcycle, he's not able to catch up to them. Though he is able to frame them, because apparently his hacker cult has just big connections to the news. Because of that, they do go on the run. This is the reason I'd imagine they don't call Mr. Nobody, is that it would take a little while for them to figure stuff out, and that would get them caught by the bad guys. I feel like there's more to that, and if this was in a regular Fast and Furious movie, they probably wouldn't be caught and would be easily brought to Mr. Nobody's, base or whatever. But fine, that's a good enough reason to which why they don't call, Dom and friends, even though Hobbs would absolutely do so. Whatever. They go instead underground to a more criminal person who Deckard has connections to, which is his strange Russian lover or something. I don't care. She's able to get them into Brixton's place, where there's a kind of funny hallway fight scene with Deckard and Hobbs on opposite sides, and it's cute. It shows off some more of their respective personalities and how well, but not really well, they work together. Though they are, of course, caught and they're nearly shocked to death before the two of them enact a plan which was vaguely alluded to as they were talking to the Russian lady, where they kind of distract him and then she's gonna hopefully try and come up and, take them down, but Hattie ends up not being able to because for some reason, like fucking Metal Gear Solid 4, they have specific cybernetic enhancements that allow them to use the guns, and if you don't have it, you can't use it, so okay.
nanomachine, son.
They don't, however, have that on the flamethrower that happened to be there, so this doctor who they had kidnapped alongside Hattie, you know, starts being like, sure, I'll work with them, and just fucking flamethrowers Brixton. He doesn't get any burns on him, but that's just, it was hilarious when he just showed up out of nowhere. Though Brixton snaps his neck, the three are able to escape, and a crazy, just physics-fucking defying chase scene happens where they constantly jump through windows on their Jeep or whatever, and it's just like, what the fuck's going on? And they end up only being able to escape when The Rock gets like a truck and Decker with his Jeep like flops on top of it on the Jeep, and so all of them are there, but then Brixton nearly catches them, but a fucking thing falls on top of them, which somehow doesn't kill him or flip over their fucking vehicle, just breaks it in half. And then with help of Kevin Hart, who they met in the middle of the fucking movie because you is in it, and I fucking audibly screamed, no, because I don't hate Kevin Hart, but I'm fucking tired of him with The Rock. There are too many movies of this pairing now. Make it stop, please. With his help, are they able to get to Hobbs' home, which is in Samoa. Which, one weird thing about this is that his mom is not played by his real mom, even though his real mom did ask to play Hobbs' mom, which would have been fine. It's not like this character has that many lines anyway. How bad could she have done? Especially because in the background, they have a picture of Rocky Johnson. And this would have made way more sense to have the real mom of Dwayne rather than just a fake... Rather than an actress who is literally as old as Dwayne The Rock Johnson. But whatever, fine. But they also maybe could have included more of The Rock's family. They have Roman Reigns, whom if you don't know, Rocky Johnson's father and the head of the Anoa'i family are blood brothers. They have this pact, so technically that side of the family is related to this big wrestler family who you have seen all over the place if you're a wrestling fan. One of whom is in this movie, Roman Reigns. He's in there. You could have had more of them in there. There's a lot of members there. I'm surprised they couldn't get more of them to come out. I guess the Usos are too busy constantly defending and or going to try and get the tag team championship, so fuck it. Either way, Hobbs does have to kind of, bring his family on his side, as they don't quite like him right now because he did just abandon them a long time ago and hasn't been there since. But through their help, are they able to set up a whole bunch of traps and in fact get the machine working so they could help Hattie, which, let's get into that. The reason why Hattie is so important to our main villains is because she's specifically carrying this super virus that they want to basically put throughout the world, like the fucking Resident Evil villains, so that the cyborgs can take over. Which, the fact that I have to say that in the same universe as a group of rascals trying to hijack a truck for some VCR players, 20-something, more or less 20 years later, there would be a plan by a cyber cult to replace the world with cyborgs after they use a virus to kill them all, is so fucking weird when you think about it. But of course, after a very, very entertaining action scene where they kind of disable their weapons so they beat the shit out of them and then end up chasing them when they were able to get a helicopter and then hook themselves to the fucking helicopter, which is just nuts. So crazy. They end up crashing the helicopter, and in something that weirdly reminded me of the fifth Die Hard, which I have a review of, and it's alright, they strangely survive it and then have a fight scene afterwards. You could have just ended it twice at this point, all things considered. But he was gonna have that big scene, and through that are they able to figure out how to sort of counteract his thing, which is to hit him while he's not looking. Which, sure, I guess. I think they tried to do that before and it didn't work, but okay, fine. They're able to almost disable his tech, and because of that, the cult that's behind him just shuts him down, and that's how he dies. And then the cult just now we have our eyes on you, and we don't find out who these guys are. I'm gonna go ahead and pretend that these are the guys that Cypher will be working with in the next movie, just because now there's a cyber cult out there that has a lot of power in the media, so what's up with that? But despite this crazy-ass plot with a lot of things going in it. Hobbs and Shaw is a vaguely simple movie. It's your regular action film, having a lot of weird ideas in it. It's nothing really special or different than anything you've ever seen before, especially because of the way the characters are played. Now, I love Jason Statham because he's fucking fantastic, but he's done better in most movies I've seen of him. I don't really know why he kind of just seemed like he cared less in this one, but strangely I feel like he did the best out of the entire cast. Nothing against Vanessa Kirby, she did her best in this, but I felt like Hattie was a pretty uninteresting character that really wasn't needed in the overall world of Fast and Furious. There's nothing really that was added that you couldn't just done with Owen, and in fact Owen probably needs the most expansion out of these characters. And on that topic, what was the point of really giving this, like, deeper backstory to Deckard? It was weird that they decided to begin to make him a good guy at the last one, but now the fact that he's never been a bad guy, ever, even though he definitely, on his own volition, teamed up with what he knew, what we found out later in 8, was working with Cypher, and that before that he was going to kill these random people who killed his brother, who he knew, again, by his own volition, knew was working with Cypher and was fucked over by her. He knew that he got himself in his own trouble. Why did he go after these random fucking assholes who fought him if he's not a bad guy, which he's never been apparently the whole time? Even though the movie itself mentions he just beats the shit out of people who get in his way, even if they're not all bad people. You can have an anti-hero, but you gotta fucking choose, and this movie decides to not do that. However, I feel like it's the least egregious character change, because at least I can still see that this is still Deckard. This is still Jason Statham on screen being Deckard Shaw, even if they're building this weird history and around this family that was introduced 2 movies ago. But whatever, fine, at least I find them enjoyable, and I do like seeing the 2 siblings kind of, like, grow back with each other to become friends again. But, you know, why? At the very least, though, I like them, but as opposed to The Rock, you know? Because The Rock is just The Rock in this movie. I, more so than the last one, do not see Hobbs anymore. I don't see the cool, badass detective Hobbs anymore. He is purely Dwayne The Rock Johnson in this, and not the, like, cool, about to fuck you up Rock from his early days in wrestling. And while I'm totally fine with this more family-friendly, snippy Rock that's just like, boy, I'ma beat the slapdinger out of you, and we're supposed to be like, yeah, it's The Rock! Yeah, fine, you know, I can deal with that in Jumanji, fine. But in this, I don't want that. I want fucking Luke Hobbs. He's a very clearly set character, this badass from 5 and 6, and he's not here. He's not here anymore. Where the fuck did he go? I saw less of it in 7, when we saw less of him in general, but at least he was still, you know, I could be like, yeah, Hobbs, but then he's just beginning to be The Rock in 8, and he's fully transformed into that in this. I kind of don't want to see Luke Hobbs anymore if he's going to continue to be this fucking goofball now. Where did this fucking come from? Is it him spending more time with his family that he's just learned to be less of a cool guy? Again, I'm fine with this portrayal of what The Rock does in every fucking movie, but I don't want that here for the character he's shown. Doesn't fucking do that, or at least didn't do it before, but now it's entirely this. Idris Elba, who is normally fantastic, is so fucking dumb in this. There's one scene where The Rock is like, you can't, like, change the world by committing genocide. I forgot the exact line he says, but I distinctly remember the exact line that Idris Elba replies with, which is, genocide, schmenocide. Like, really? You're gonna pretend that your villain is this big, cool, philosophical opposite that I'm supposed to be like, whoa, but what if? When he's very clearly this boring, generic, cartoony fucking villain who says shit like that. What the fuck? Like, excuse me? There's nothing specifically interesting about the cinematography or the directing besides just the bunch of CGI and the fact that it was framed well enough, but I'll talk about the director and how I feel about that later. But the weirdest parts to me are some of the editing choices of this film. The movie begins with them waking up and then going off to find the whole, you know, virus thing, but strangely they immediately cut when that part ends after the title card to them finding out about it. it doesn't give you like a time or a date from like 2 days before, and due to that I was confused for a second because I thought that that part happened before. And I know there's editing choices that could allow me to understand that that was a couple of days before, which it is, very clearly. If I didn't think about it for a whole second, I would have thought, I was like, oh, I guess they were looking onto the virus on their own and then were contacted. Because no part in the editing in any capacity, or from any text on screen, or anything, tells me that that beginning segment was after when they found out. There's not even like a point in the movie where they like change into the outfits and then they come afterwards, you know? Nothing. So it's very weird editing choice there. And there's a weird part in the middle of it from when they're at the Russians lady and they talk about the plan that the Shaws did when they were younger, the Mick Jagger plan, which they end up doing later. And when she does it, she's like, I'm Mick Jagger, and then the movie stops. Like, it freeze frames on her face, plays a guitar sound, and then she continues to talk. And then it goes to a flashback for like a little bit, and then it goes back. What a weird editing choice. It was so messy. It just felt so odd. And certainly the rest of the movie is edited fine enough. There's nothing else that's like that shot. I don't know why that was a thing in the movie. That was so weird. That was my biggest problem with the editing of the movie, though my biggest problem of the movie in general is the fact that it's just not fucking funny. It tries to be a buddy cop, and then it just ends up not being very entertaining. There's not a lot of actual jokes. A lot of the problems people have with like Marvel and stuff is that a lot of the jokes are, I'm gonna call you something you're not, and that can get annoying. There's at least more to enjoy in those films. Whole other topic. But with movies like this that try to have that sort of formula of, hey, that works, you gotta have more to your film though, guys. Because if it's just boring generic action with characters that don't really have anything interesting going on with them, then they're just saying things. It's just The Rock doing some smack talk to Statham, and Statham vaguely getting something in, and that's the comedy for a good chunk of the movie, and it's not that good in all reality. Some of it's childish even. Statham basically, like, when he makes fake passports for them so they can get to Russia or wherever, like The Rock, I think Hugh Janus or something. I know someone's called Hugh Janus at some point, which it's just like, haha, funny, you fucking Bart. What are you, 12? What the fuck? And you know what's the worst part about this movie? Alongside having Kevin Hart, who, by the way, I've never thought is that funny in general, and though I can stand him in other movies where I think he's doing more than just being the yelly, screamy guy, being with The Rock for some reason, often in the last couple movies. Just wait for his appearance in Black Adam, because he'll be there, guaranteed. But regardless, him not being funny is one thing. But Ryan Reynolds showing up and him being fucking obnoxious to the point of like, wow, Ryan, shut the fuck up. Get off the screen. He is unlikable, obnoxious, and possibly a bit rapey. Why is he in this fucking movie? Every time he's on screen, I want him to get the fuck off. And that feels so weird saying that about Ryan fucking Reynolds, who is, on his own, hilarious. Out of all movies, I'm totally fine with some things like breaking the logic of, alright, you wouldn't be able to survive that car crash, but fine, it looked cool. But holy shit, that fucking chase scene was so stupid in this. There was no way any of that shit could ever happen under any fucking reasons. And just due to the fact that there's now cyborgs and fucking just like viruses, it's all this has went way so far and is just so unrecognizable from Fast and Furious at this point that it's like, you should have just called this something else. And the fact that it doesn't even try at any point to be serious and is mainly a buddy cop action movie, similar to like Die Hard 3, but even less serious than that, it's just like, you should have just called this something else. You should have just been like, you know what, you could sell a movie with Dwayne and Statham, and that would have been good enough. I don't know why you needed to call it these characters. Besides the fact that they had played those characters, but just fucking characters. They're not anymore. You just done a whole other fucking thing and called it Fast and Furious. And maybe if it were better, or tried to actually do something with these characters, it just like, I don't fucking care for a good chunk of it. And the thing is, I don't think this is a bad movie. I at least thought the action, when it wasn't fucking stupid, was fine, even if it was mainly CGI-ridden, just fucking nonsense. And if it tried to make its villain at all interesting, I could at least be more invested in it, but it tries too hard to be, whoa, cool, fun, action, here's a bunch of CGI in your fucking face. Like, I don't care. I don't hate this movie. I definitely wanted to continue watching it by the end of it, but I felt nothing throughout the entirety of it. There's just nothing that was good about the Fast and Furious movies normally that kept me interested in the action, you know? It was more like, because I could sit there and not give a shit, things were happening and I was at least mildly entertained, but I wasn't invested in the slightest. I don't care about these two as much as I do about the group, and what I did care is not shown in this. So what do I have? You know, it's, as I say with action films, you have two things you have to do. Interesting action and interesting characters to get me into that action. If you have at least one of those and do it well, fine. Your action movie will at least be watchable. And this movie doesn't do those two, but it doesn't not do those two, you know? I don't hate these characters, I don't hate the action, but I don't never get fully invested into the movie due to just how not thought out this entirety of this movie is. They just put shit on screen, featured characters you vaguely know, and went, there you go. Fine. If you want to have a fine time, eat some fucking popcorn, you probably won't hate this movie, especially if you are a Fast and Furious fan and you want to know what happens to these characters next. Strangely, unlike 7 and 8, you don't need the other movies to watch this one, so I could say for those who want to watch this and haven't watched the others, you don't need to. You in fact can watch Hobbs and Shaw on its own, but is it worth it? No. It is frankly the second weakest of the franchise. I finally want to get into what my ranking of this series is. I mentioned I would do it last time, but then kind of didn't. But here's what the ranking is. I still feel like Fast 5 is the best one, and Too Fast, Too Furious is the worst one, but I watched Tokyo Drift, F8, and F7 way before this. I kind of never really want to watch this ever again, in all honesty. I want to kind of cap it off on that stating what I didn't say in the beginning for a reason, which is this movie is directed by David Leitch. Leitch? Pretty sure it's Leitch. I feel like Leitch is the wrong way. I don't know. David Leitch. He is a stunt performer and made his directorial debut with John Wick. And hey, John Wick's a good movie. Atomic Blonde is a fun movie. But the problem is, those aren't written by that guy. A director doesn't directly have to be involved in the writing process, but it normally allows it to really have a cohesive vision with the person directing the movie. Otherwise, you have a person directing someone else's story. And though they do make it their own vision, they really don't bring it together and really have it all make sense. So I can't find any exact evidence about producer interference. This feels like a movie that was fully producer-made. You know, producers gave the director an idea, the writers some vague idea of what to do with the characters, and they just did what they saw every other fucking movie does with The Rock and with Statham, and action, just CGI fucked in your fucking face, and that's it. They just did that. This feels like a movie that nobody thought about doing. Did people lazily slap this out? Maybe. I'm not going to exactly say that, but I will say it's clear that there wasn't an actual thought throughout this entire fucking movie. Except maybe by The Rock, who was probably the reason why they decided to make Hobbs fully Samoan, and that I can respect. I at least like that part of the movie, because nobody really had a cohesive idea, and when it comes to people like David Leitch who just direct things to make it look fine, he at least made it look fine, but without any actual ideas, it doesn't have an identity of its own. It feels like every other movie ever been made in the last decade. Next week we'll be talking about F9 due to it coming out this Friday, so I'll be watching that and having that ready for the next oncoming week. So we'll be seeing the end of this marathon for now and leaving it out to what will happen in the future when 10 and 11 eventually come out. Until then, I've been the Movie-a-thoner. Did you like this review? Well, then go ahead and subscribe so you can watch the F9 review, and go ahead and look back at my other Fast and Furious reviews if you liked what you saw. If not, well then leave that and any other difference of opinions from Hobbs and Shaw in the comments. I definitely love to talk about it, preferably not like a bunch of assholes. But most importantly though, stay good, stay safe, and don't be an asshole.